Hello Sounders, it's Mick here. I want to wend my way through a couple of games, if you'll bear with me. I went up to Birmingham last Saturday to see our club play in the evening and also to visit an old work friend from years gone by. And I was intending to do a report for Pompey Sound on Sunday, but I couldn't bring myself to talk about it, to be honest with you. I was so disappointed with what I saw. Not angry, just deeply disappointed with the players and the coaching team and John Massinho. So that I couldn't bring myself to talk about it. I knew plenty would. I knew there'd be a pile-on, and I simply didn't want to join in. Massinho had gambled with a succession of changes in the hope that fresh bodies and faces, quite reasonably this, in the hope that fresh bodies and faces would create problems for a Birmingham side low on confidence with an unpopular manager teetering on the brink of the sack himself. And John Massinho lost his gamble. And therefore we all lost. And it was a horrible evening. And I honestly couldn't find anything good to say. And I don't value moaning. So I stayed stumm, Sounders. Besides which, there was another game following fairly quickly. I do like talking to you lot. If we had repeated this disorganised, unstructured, slow, tepid, disjointed, lacking in belief approach we saw in Birmingham again against Wrexham, I would have had to come on and talk to you, Sounders, because I perceive you as friends in this part of our lives which we call supporting Pompey. But goodness knows what I'd have said had we lost in the same way as the previous game. But we didn't. It wasn't that bad. Because John Massinho's better than that. He wasn't going to allow that to happen again. And he's got a squad and a backroom staff who also wouldn't let that happen again. I feel confident of that. Without wishing to be overdramatic, a bad outcome needs a swift response. And I would say to you, 7 changes and a clean sheet are exactly that, a swift response. Of course, we could have done with a goal. We'll come back to that. I'm interested in who he chose to leave out after Birmingham. They're all important players to us and the club, or they should be. And they were dropped for Wrexham. So Hayden Matthews is a young man of obvious potential when you watch him, for whom we paid a lot of money, but who's suffered a really nasty injury at Fratton and doesn't, to me anyway, doesn't look quite recovered. I remember him when he first arrived. Maybe it's the lack of a pre-season, but to me he just looks a little fragile. And that's not a good thing, is it, for a centre-back? He's calm, collected, clever, able to carry the ball, find long cross-field passes, and yet he looks a little fragile and vulnerable in close-quarter situations. That is not sustainable. But I really honestly believe he'll come back. I believe in his ability and the ability of of the backroom staff to get him right. But Sounders, you could see why he was left out. Marlon Pack, by contrast, is at the other end of his football career. He, though, was unable to marshal his team in Birmingham. He lacks his pace of old, and he doesn't press. He will be important to our side this season, that's obvious, but Sounders, you could see why he was left out. Mackenzie Kirk felt really isolated when playing at Birmingham, unable to hold the ball up sufficiently long to link play. He has great potential, but so much to learn. And in the team he was playing with, there was no time to learn. You could see, Sounders, why he was left out. John Swift. Now, he can drift out of games. I was told by a West Brom fan that. And that's what he did at Birmingham. He looks dangerous when he's playing higher up the pitch. That's where he obviously wants to play. But defensively, he can lack focus. And Sounders, you could see why he was left out. Yang Min Hyuk is learning his trade and the responsibilities of playing in a professional team. When things aren't going right and you're new to Pompey and you're away from home in a night game, it's tough. It's tough for a young man learning his trade, but you have to fight. Sounders, you could see why he was left out. Mark Kushnowski is an expensive acquisition who's taken a long time to settle into the side for one reason or another, who knows. He has been introduced at the end of several games, and in one of, at least one of those cameos, and I can't remember, it was either Coventry or Stoke at home, I saw some fight and aggression and ability, which indicated perhaps he was ready to play a part for Pompey. And quite reasonably, he was given a chance at Birmingham. But it simply didn't work out. Maybe there's an injury that I know nothing about. But he didn't make any mark on the game. He didn't get hold of it. He didn't get hold of his own game. He didn't express himself as we've seen in fleeting moments that he can. So at the moment, I cannot see what's going on with Mark Kozhnowski. But Sounders, you could see why he was left out. Finally, Jordan Williams was left out at Birmingham. This time, I don't know why. Except that we have two other decent right-backs in Devlin and Swanson. But it was particularly perverse to leave him out, it seemed to me, at Birmingham, because we were weakened by having lost Conor Ogilvie for that game. So I couldn't see why he was left out. All of which brings me, Sounders, to Wrexham at home. Forced into the spotlight because forced into the spotlight because of our disappointing results, and by Wrexham last time out inflicting the first defeat of the season on table toppers Coventry City with a hat-trick from their famous old number 9 warrior Kiefer Moore, making it seem even harder for Pompey to get back and recover pride. And in came Murphy and Knight, LaRue and Chaplin, Bishop and Devlin and Ogilvy back from illness. So they joined up with Bursick, Poole, Boat and Dizelle, the four who survived the Birmingham Blitz. So we started with three at the back, it would seem, and it turned out, with Devlin wide right and pushing up to release Chaplin to work inside down the right channel to link up with Colby Bishop himself. And there would be Ogilvy doing the same on the left to support Josh Murphy. It meant a lot of midfield work for LaRue and Dizelle, which they undertook pretty successfully in this game, and urgently. Dizelle got booked after just 11 minutes. Always a worry that. But it was the right sort of booking, if you see what I mean, in reaction to what had gone on in the previous game. It was the right sort of effort and urgency. It symbolised rejection of the passivity of Birmingham, which I hated. And Dizelle managed to control his play for the rest of the game, 90 plus minutes, which meant that he stayed on the pitch, basically. Well, you would expect him to do that. The first half felt to me like being in recovery from that previous game. There were worries, but they slowly evaporated. The team seemed to come together, getting used to a new system, gaining confidence and solidarity at the back, even though it required more outstanding work, it has to be said, from Joseph Bursick. I mean, his save from Moore's header was remarkable. He's proving, isn't he, an outstanding signing, certainly in the light of Schmidt's absence. In spite of Murphy's brilliance, we still did not have enough in the tank to pierce Arthur Okonkwo's line. See, he was a very good Wrexham young keeper. He saved bravely and brilliantly throughout the second half, and surely was Wrexham's man of the match. You could see how much he was enjoying his part in the game. It gave me some, I mean, it was obviously painful for us, but it gave me some pleasure to see a young man so pleased with himself, if you like. But he earned it. He earned that. The match, by the way, was an entertaining one. It was as entertaining as Saturdays have been woeful. Although they lost Ogilvy, we lost Ogilvy to yet another injury. That was in the first half, after 25 minutes, and Jordan Williams, as we all knew he would be, was a good replacement. He was unlucky not to start. There was, I say it quietly, there was application and closing down all round. And late in the first half, the pressing of Murphy and Bishop, they pressed for up 70, it must have been 70 metres up the pitch. And it led to a mistake in the box by a very promising winger, Kabore, sort of wing back Kabore. And it led to a big chance for Bishop, which was blocked after he failed to get it onto his right foot, or failed to lay it back successfully to Murphy or Chaplin. After half-time, Pompey took control of the game for the most part. I thought Okonkwo frustrated them. They frustrated themselves. For all his fine work, Murphy couldn't find Chaplin when he does find space in the box, which was a few times. And when Bishop can be, and always is, it seems to me, well marked. In the second half, Pompey took control. Murphy played wonderfully well. Ironically and typically of football, Lewis O'Brien perhaps had the half's best chance, but that was blocked by Bursic. It would have been a terrible moment for us. But in general, Pompey should have made their superiority count, and they didn't. But it was, if you can have such a thing, a good 0-0. Certainly in the result, in the light of Birmingham, it was a good 0-0. It should reinstate some confidence. They ended up with 29 touches. I didn't count them. I read them. 29 touches in the Wrexham box. They now have to find ways of converting touches in the box into goals. It'll be interesting to see if John Massinho retains 3-4-3 for the visit to Hull. I sort of hope they do, but I realise it's a rare formation for us. In fact, I was reminded the last time we started with 3-4-3 was at Fleetwood in League One, a game I was at with my daughter. But typically of me, I can't remember a lot about it now. I seem to think, and I haven't looked this up, so I may have got it wrong, but I seem to remember young Towler got a rare game, and maybe he scored. There was celebration afterwards for him, but maybe it was just because he played well, but maybe he scored. And Pompey certainly won that game. Nice visit to the northwest. My memories are getting rubbish. Anyway, that's another matter. Here's what I remember of our players against Wrexham. Bursic, as I've said already, another really good performance, and he deserved the clean sheet. Ibane Boat, one of the survivors from Birmingham, and he deserved to be. He looked good in a position he likes to play, and it's very satisfying because we haven't seen much of him. He's almost like a new signing for us, and it's great to see him enjoy his game. Josh Knight, he's a strong man, and he did well. And maybe a 3 at the back might suit him. Regan Poole continues to work hard and successfully. He's having a decent season. Conor Ogilvie, we were so pleased to have him back in the side, and so sorry when he damaged a knee in making a clearance after about 25 minutes, and now we might lose him again. I just wonder to you if he was completely ready to come back. We don't know what was wrong with him, why he was out for a game, but was he completely ready? I'm not sure he quite looked himself, but I might be making that up, Sounders. You'll decide. Andre Dizelle rightly kept his place and worked hard once again, and he's having a good season. Luke LaRue would have enjoyed his start, and he played with mobility, which some lack in midfield. He's got it, and aggression, which some lack a bit of in midfield, and he's got it. And he played, I would suggest to you, well enough to hold his place. Terry Devlin, as always, worked hard without perhaps contributing enough to the problem of scoring goals, although he did lay off one ball in the penalty area to Chaplin, which we'll come to. Josh Murphy had a simply wonderful game, skinning his defenders, anyone that he was up against, time after time. We need goals, which he will no doubt provide now and again. The greatest worry is keeping this quite frail man fit. I think I heard John Mousinho say after the game he may not be able to start at Hull. This wouldn't be surprising, but it's the last thing any of us want to hear, isn't it, Sounders? He is our star player. Connor Chaplin. Wow, what do we say about Connor? He showed signs of a goal coming with a wonderful volley. He doesn't get into the 6-yard box as a small man might. He prefers to hover on the edge of the penalty area, where, to be fair, he did find himself occasionally, and Josh Murphy didn't find him. And he was, one saw, he was plainly obviously a bit cross about that at times. But there was one successful, up to a point, good piece of football started by Murphy in the 70th minute and transferred across the box by Devlin. And it led to Connor's left foot shot when he's on the right, and a right foot shot would have given Wrexham less time to cover. Now, who knows about things like that, but that's just my perception of that particular moment. Anyway, we are without Segacic and we're without Lang, and we need Connor. We need Connor Chaplin. He's got class. So there's no point, Sounders, in getting on his back, which some are. There's no point. Just keep encouraging him. Finally, another worry is Colby Bishop. He too looks a troubled man. It takes a worried man to sing a worried song. He looks a bit worried by his lack of goals. This lack of confidence robs him, I would suggest to you, robs him of split seconds in big moments. It may do anyway. I think that's what happens. I think that's part of losing confidence. You just lose that nervous energy that will create something special physically. Colby Bishop simply needs a fluke goal off his arse, as they used to say in Anglo-Saxon times. Our subs were Jordan Williams, who I've said again and again in this piece looked and looks really good. Zach Swanson came on for less time, but some time, and as usual did okay. And Marlon, who came on for a very short space of time, wasn't really required to do much, but is our calming club captain and influence. On without fear, Sounders. Oh, wait a minute. Before I go, I almost forgot to say, I'm not a great one for formal celebrations, but to all those who organised or took part in the pre-match Remembrance Day commemoration of the end of the First World War, and all those who who've died in war since then. That was a beautiful commemoration. It was beautifully done. And it made me proud of our city. Play out, Pompey.